What's going on, everybody? I'm Jeff Kirkshin, and welcome to another episode of Do What You Love. Thank you for your subscribes and all of your follows, whether it's on Spotify, Apple, or on our many websites that Beasley Media Group holds. I really appreciate it. I have been so excited to share our next guest with you. You know, I'm so blessed to have a chance in my job, in my career, to meet some pretty incredible people, and Lisa Barnes is one of those. Excuse me, Captain Lisa Barnes of the Salvation Army. I want everybody to meet Lisa right now. Hi, good morning. Wow, I'm used to saying good morning. I guess we're filming this in the afternoon. Morning radio's got me there. Lisa, hi.
Hi, how are you?
I am just ecstatic. I am so excited to get chatting with you because, you know, you and I have crossed paths quite a bit here in Las Vegas, in Southern Nevada. You do so much good for the community, and as a radio station host, we try our very, very best to get your mission out there. We've worked very closely with the Salvation Army on a lot of projects. And first of all, can I just say thank you for committing so much time and love and effort to an organization like the Salvation Army?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. It's a good thing knowing that I get to wake up and do every day what I was created to do. And a lot of people search for that their whole life, and I never have to wonder. So it's a pleasure.
Lisa, this is exactly why I brought you on the podcast called Do What You Love, okay? Because you just kind of, I feel like you've got a good sense of people. Like, you're a good people person and you can read people well. I pride myself on that the same, and I just feel so much positivity, good vibes, and just do what you love vibes from you. First time we met in person, first time we met over Zoom, and I needed to have you on the podcast, and I want to start from the very beginning. There is a reason why you work for the Salvation Army, and obviously you're called to do this, but why do you have this calling?
Yeah, I love it. I've been an officer with the Salvation Army for 13 years. Before that, the Salvation Army was my church home since I was 11. I was actually born here in Vegas, which is pretty cool.
And
I
that's
wasn't.
rare. We have
I know.
to add that. My fiance is born and raised in Vegas,
Yeah.
and she's
Well,
one.
she's got one up on me because I wasn't raised here. I was born here, left when I was 4. And I just recently came back a year ago. Salvation Army,
Really?
quasi-military structure. They move us around, and they brought my husband and myself. We're team partners in life and ministry and work for good together. So last July, we came to Vegas for the first time since I was 4, which is pretty cool because I have some connections still around,
That is
which I can't wait to
so
explore more.
That is so cool to hear that you were born here and then called back to the place that you grew up or that you were born in and were raised for a couple years with your husband. I mean, that's so cool.
Yeah, and it's super cool. I never thought I'd be back here. Growing up, my mom, my biological mom, was an addict and a prostitute and all kinds of things. And I grew up kind of in between her and in foster care. I think I was in probably between 30 or 40 foster homes, cumulative to the best of my knowledge. So kind of all over the place, but those were always like a place of respite and peace for me. And I don't have any horror stories or any of those kinds of sensationalized views of foster care. I think that folks that work in the system are absolute heroes, and they've really transformed my life. And so between the heroes of the foster care system and heroes that were a part of the Salvation Army as their church home and as their home for service to the community, they filled in the gaps for me and
Wow.
showed me that my life could be different and my mom's story didn't have to be my story. And because of that, I've never had any of those struggles, never struggled with alcohol or drugs or anything crazy. Just kind of just being bonkers, sober bonkers, but that's it.
I think that's beautiful, and I think you
Yeah.
carry such a light with you that everywhere you go, you shine that, and that's something that I recognized immediately with both you and your husband. What a power couple! I mean, what a positivity power couple! You guys are just relationship goals in every sense of the word, and I'm so happy to have you on today. Now, you mentioned your biological mother, and when we first met, you had actually told me that you were in the foster system, as you mentioned, but that you actually took a lot from Salvation Army growing up. There was a lot that offered you, and now you're kind of paying it back as an adult.
Yeah. It was crazy. So when I was a teenager, I just turned 38. So 100 years ago when I was a teenager, things that were really cool in church ministry. And I feel like the biggest nerd ever saying this, but the coolest thing was puppets. And I was this ghetto kid from the hood that fell in love with doing puppets, like the big Sesame Street puppets, right? And
Really?
yes, I know it's such like the nerdy, and I'm like hardcore. I'm covered in tattoos and I'm weird piercings and stuff. And so for me to admit that was a huge part of my maturation was puppets, um, is very honest and telling. So we're best friends now. That I've told you my deepest darkest.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
this never came up on the many
No.
interviews I've seen you
Yeah, I
do with
know. I
television and
know.
everything. So how did these puppets kind of play into your childhood and
Yeah,
your
it was
teenage
just
years?
it was just so fun, right? Because everybody else in my life was doing dirt. And it was so cool to go to a place that was the foundation of the experience at the Salvation Army. This was in Gresham, Oregon, right outside of Portland. The foundation of that experience was on service to the community and doing whatever you can to make other people's lives better. And this season, puppets were the rage. And so we realized we would have an in with kids, maybe with kids that were from vulnerable situations. Or maybe we went into a few different types of facilities that house kids that weren't able to stay at their homes for whatever reason. So it was just a cool thing to be a part of, and it was fun. And I'm a giant. I'm 5'10" in flats, and so I always got to be the really big puppets in the back because I have a pretty sweet wingspan. So they needed me just as much as I needed them.
That is so fascinating. And isn't it kind of crazy to think of something as small in one person's life can be as big as it is in your life? I mean,
Yeah.
and kind of finding that means of, you look at the Muppets and Sesame Street and everything of how they teach kids very, I guess you could say, difficult life lessons, but in
Yeah.
such a fun, lighthearted way.
Right. And that's really what it was for me, is just a place where I could let my guard down and I didn't have to be on the lookout. I didn't have to watch behind my shoulder to see if someone's going to come up and try and do dirt. It was just fun. And I think that's really the essence of childhood, right?
Right.
And even though I was lacking that for so much of my life before then, it was like my tank, my reserves got filled.
Hmm.
Um, in that experience, and I can't imagine doing that now. But I even have a Kermit the Frog tattoo because I love that kind of stuff so much. I know, isn't
Wow.
that crazy? It's Kermit the Frog holding a Bible, giving a thumbs up.
Stop it. That might be that is one of the coolest tattoos I've ever heard of
It's
in
pretty
my life.
ridiculous.
That's beautiful. And
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. And I think that is so bringing your childhood to be a memory for you for the rest of your life. I think that is so neat and so cool. I have to give you credit because, I must say I was always on the volunteer side of things. I grew up extremely blessed and thank goodness for my amazing parents, but we were always told, we adopted a family every Christmas and every Thanksgiving and we're delivering through either the Red Cross or through Salvation Army or whatever it was. So like I've been on this side of it, but I always felt like I couldn't connect. We would go to these things, and maybe this is just my privilege talking, and I'm not afraid to talk about that. I'm extremely blessed, but I've been educated in a sense to know where I come from and be understanding of where others come from. But for you, when you talk to a family, when you talk to kids, when you go to a group, you can sit there and be like, "Hey, I know what's going on with you." From that position, how much do you think that helps you with your job?
Yeah, I think it helps every single day. And I think more and more of us are able to relate in that way through this COVID experience we've all
Hmm.
gone through together. I think a lot that before COVID happened, if you were a person that had never really experienced need, that you were always taken care of, you came from a family that always had enough, sometimes in our separateness or lack of understanding, we would assume that people that do have need are, those people, or people that did that to their own lives by their own mistakes. But I think COVID just kind of exposed the vast majority of Americans are 2 to 3 paychecks away from absolute destruction. Um, so I think more of us have an insight that maybe we didn't have before, but that was my life. That was my life, knowing I don't know when I'm gonna have my next meal. I don't know, how I'm gonna have school clothes when this next year rolls around. That was my whole life growing up. And so I think when I have the privilege of working with folks that really are in some of their dark days, I see I see the unity and the things that make us similar in our humanness, way more than I see the things that separate us or divide us. Because we're a whole lot more alike than we're different.
Lisa, preach. My goodness, I'm going to church right now. You don't even understand from a perspective of where I come from in life how eye to eye we're seeing right now. I
Mhm.
have an opportunity to talk to an audience every single morning in a major city in our great country. And I constantly take time to remind people that we're all people. We're all God's creatures. We're all on this earth for a reason. And I get sick and tired of people identifying by anything other than a person. Not
Yes.
even just an American, not even
Mhm.
just a Christian, but a person.
Mhm.
I mean, you go obviously for skin color, gender, differences, sexual preference, but then you get all the way down to now everybody identifies with a political party. And that makes me want to throw up.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just it's heartbreaking, and I encourage everybody, because I know, Lisa, that you're preaching this too, is like, look at somebody and learn from somebody's situation and become a better person. This is why I started this podcast, Do What You Love, is because we've been on together for 12 minutes now, and even in 12 minutes I've learned something I didn't know earlier. I've
Right.
become a student of the world to learn more, and the minute you stop learning is the minute, I'll say it, you become bigoted in some senses,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Jeff, I think it's okay for us to acknowledge the things that make us different. I think it's totally okay for me to say, I am a white woman, and my husband is a black man, and my children are beautiful biracial beige babies. Um, because I think the things that make us different don't have to be bad. I think that's just the purest way I can say it. Is a lot of times we liken sameness to goodness. And I think that our differences can still be really beautiful and really good. And we don't have to pretend that we're all very homogenous and same because we're not. But I don't think we were created to be the same. We were created to be different, but we were very much created to be people of love and kindness that's never optional, even if we're different and even if we don't understand.
I think that's beautifully put. I think you're absolutely right. My co-host Amy on Jeff and Amy in the Morning, she is married to a black man, has beautiful biracial babies. How did you describe it? Beautiful beige babies?
Beautiful biracial beige
Oh, I
babies.
absolutely love that. The three big B's right there. And she's seen firsthand some people looking at her differently and maybe passing judgment and everything like that. But if there are more people out there like Lisa, then we'd have more of an understanding that, hey, like, it's okay to be different. It's fun to be different. I mean, think about it. We're all different. Think about our backgrounds. And now here we are, just hanging out on a podcast together. It makes all the difference of being able to talk to somebody who's different than you. And a great example is my neighbors right down the street are two police officers, two Metro
Mhm.
police officers here, and they're married. And I've never owned or looked at a gun or known a police officer, or that world is so foreign to me.
Mhm.
But instead of immediately assuming something about a gun owner, or immediately assuming something about a police officer's family, or immediately assuming anything, I sat down and I had a beer with them.
Yeah.
And I got to know them as human beings. And I think that if you just get to know the person behind the badge, the person behind the skin color, the person behind anything, I mean, it's okay to be different. It's beautiful to be different.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think it's incredible. And Lisa, I'm already inspired. I already want to start my own nonprofit now after talking to you about all this great stuff. We're on with Lisa Barnes, Captain Lisa Barnes of the Salvation Army here in Southern Nevada, and your work is it speaks for itself. But I want to quickly say, if there's anybody listening here in Las Vegas area or across the country, what's one way, Lisa, that somebody can get involved tomorrow? Listening to this podcast, they say, I want to do something and help the Salvation Army and help out people like Lisa who are dedicating their lives to this. What's one thing they can do right now?
Well, what's so great about the Salvation Army is that it's really customizable. The Salvation Army is in every zip code in the United States. At my last count, we were in 130 plus countries worldwide. So we're all over the place. But I think the first thing before you decide what you can do, I think it's really identifying who you are. And what you're passionate about, because all of us can go drop off a check or bring some canned goods for a food box, but what are you really passionate about? I think the key to longevity and service comes when we find the intersections of the things that really make us tick and really give us energy when we wake up in the morning. So I think the first thing I would say, ask who am I and how would I feel most passionate in helping. And most Salvation Armies will have something that relates to your areas of passion. Here in Southern Nevada, we have a campus on Owens, 35 West Owens, that is a 500 bed sheltering facility for folks that are experiencing homelessness here in Southern Nevada, including 250 beds for veterans, which I feel really linked to because I feel like these folks have given me a huge amount of service and debt to our country, and we need to do whatever we can to help fill in the gaps as they need it, with all of the respect and kindness and admiration deserved of people who have served in the military in any capacity. But I also think, you know, we have a lot of stuff going on with anti-human trafficking. So are you passionate about freedom? We can help connect you with that. Are you passionate about connecting with folks that are in your age bracket, whether it's for you know, studying scriptures or making food boxes, whatever it is, just let us know who you are and what you're about, and we'll plug you in. And I can't speak for every Salvation Army across the country, but I can say for sure the Salvation Army of Southern Nevada, if you are passionate about something and we don't already have it happening, let's talk about how we can make it happen. Because together we can accomplish great things. So even if we're not doing it yet, it doesn't mean we can't do it.
That is so awesome. So if somebody was passionate about creating a book club amongst people who are, you know, looking to get educated, or creating a maternity group for young moms, or whatever it is, you could pick it up and say there's nothing we can't do. And I think
That's
that's
right.
so beautiful.
Absolutely.
Now, Lee,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I know I've worked with the Salvation Army in the past, and I've donated, and I've spent an enormous amount of time with you guys, and I know that there's an enormous amount of humility when it comes to the Salvation Army. Is it's not about what you, Lisa, are getting out of it. It's not even about what me, Jeff, who donated, is getting out of it, but it really is just making better lives. And if you don't feel comfortable answering this, that's totally fine, and I get it. But is there kind of a story, and we can leave names, of course, out of it, but is there a story where you like to highlight one family, one mom, one dad, one person, one kid, where you're like, wow, look at what the Salvation Army has done? And not in a bragging way, but in a way that can make us all feel like, wow, like my donation, my time, my moments with the Salvation Army helped this happen. Do you have a story that you want to share?
Yeah. You know, I think what's cool is that the Salvation Army does so much good all over the place. I think about in our last appointment was in Seattle, Washington, and you know, whenever there was a need, we could just reach out and say, "What can we do in this way?" Even today, just today, this morning, I was in a group of it's called the Salvation Army's Women's Auxiliary, which is a group of older women that are dedicating their time for service in the Salvation Army. And we got a notice in through our family services of a woman who is pregnant. She's in her third trimester and she doesn't have a bed. She's currently sleeping on an air mattress. And I can't imagine like regularly sleeping on an air mattress ever, but especially not when you're very pregnant. So she's talking through our family services folks and getting a lot of her needs met, but that was a little bit of a gap in service. So it came through to our women's auxiliary, and she asked for $275 to buy a bed. Um, and my women talked it over, the ladies talked it over, and they said, you know what, that's good, we can do that, but I don't feel like that's enough. Let's bump it up more so this woman can get a good bed with a bed frame and bedding and pillows and a mattress topper, and more than doubled what she was asking for. And then she went shopping with some of our folks who work in family services to make that all happen. And it's just really beautiful how this community rallies. And that's something we talked about when I saw you during our SOS back to school drive. is that if we just say, hey, there's a need, Southern Nevada, what do you think we can do? And so many people come forward and help connect the dots. It's really mind blowing.
Have you noticed that giving, that was a beautiful story, by the way, and you really don't think about at all something being that bad. I mean, you put it right. I mean, could you imagine being pregnant on a bed, yet alone just being on a blow up mattress? I couldn't imagine. But have you seen, even here in Southern Nevada or across the board as well, in 2020, obviously the need went up. People were losing their jobs. Kids were at home more often. So it's just the whole situation was thrown in a flux. But did you see that people were giving more, giving less during this difficult time? Because I've been fortunate enough, despite a small pay cut for a while from my company, to keep a job, which kept the roof above my head. And my fiance and I looked at it to give more to our church and give more to our community. Did people give more in that time, or at least try
Yeah,
to?
absolutely. We saw a bit of both actually, because we saw some folks that were regular givers, regular like monthly givers to the Salvation Army. Sometimes you'll get mailers that ask you to contribute monthly. And we had some folks, a few different stories of people that shared that they used to be monthly givers and then they lost their jobs and they couldn't. And folks that were givers are now coming to the Salvation Army for support and for help. We saw that. In some ways, I'm still really thankful that they had the faith that they did in the Salvation Army to know that we are a place they can come to for help. Again, not just those people, right? But anyone who needs a little extra. But overwhelmingly, we absolutely did see an uptick in giving across the board during 2020 and realizing that this could really affect all of us. So we're hoping that that uptick in giving continues because whatever the community gives is what we have to work with. And the more that the community is giving monetarily and with their donations or their volunteer hours, that's what we can give back to the community. And and it's kind of supply and demand, right? So hopefully people continue to not lose sight of the need in the community and continue on that trend.
Lisa Barnes, Captain Lisa Barnes here for the Salvation Army. Lisa, for you, you had a mother who struggled with addiction, a biological mother, I should say, and you grew up in foster care. I have a good friend of mine, Glenn, who didn't have much of a father presence, and when he became a dad, first thing he said was, "I'm gonna be better than that guy ever was. I'm gonna be the best dad in the world." And I grew up in the element of I want to be just like my dad.
Yeah.
So for you, being a mother now, being the mother of a household with beautiful babies, and what is your perspective on parenting and motherhood from your experience of growing up in the foster system?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think my first perspective, especially from foster care, is you get to love and parent and support all kinds of kids, whether they came from your body or not. So in the Salvation Army, we get to work with kids every day. And so I really view my opportunity when I work with those kids as I get to mother them, whether that's through laughing with them or reminding them that they're cared for or sharing a joke with them. That I try and love every kid. And I imagine me looking at every child I get to interact with and imagine that they're wearing a sign that says, please do something to make me feel special today. And so I really think about that because I think often about the very small or short term interactions I had with adults that really changed my life. So I think it plays into that. I think in home, I am very quick to apologize when I get it wrong. I'm really quick to tell especially my 16-year-old son, I'm really quick to tell him, like, I'm actually making most of this up. Like, I don't really know what I'm doing. Heads up, it was a guess.
Right.
My bad. When I get it wrong. And I think because he's older, he gets it in that way. And just letting them know I'm doing my best and nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. We say that all the time in my house. And just doing our best and being honest about where we are, honest about the day being a really hard day. Um, and letting my kids know, like, if I'm really tired or if I'm bummed out, just say, hey, mommy's just kind of struggling a little bit right now. I need some chill time. I love you. I'm not mad at you. This is not really about you. I just had a grumpy grumperson come at me sideways today, and I just need to watch some trashy reality and be quiet for a minute.
I love that. I absolutely want to embody that as well because, there comes a certain point, and I don't know what the age is, but that you go from your parents are perfect, they can never do anything wrong, they're the smartest, most beautiful, most amazing people in the world, which they are, but to, oh my gosh, they're human beings too. They have bad days. They're figuring it out. And I remember when I was in high school, my parents were kind of like, hey, we're just kind of figuring this out. We don't really know what to do. I don't have advice for you on this. I don't know what to tell you, but I can just talk to you about it. So for you to do that, I think it's so inspiring because I've known one thing in my entire life. My whole life, I've wanted to be a dad. It's always what I wanted. I'm engaged. I'm going to get married in April. I'm so, I found the right woman. That's all perfect. It's not like I rushed into it and was like, I want to be a dad. Anybody? Hello?
Any volunteers?
I don't want to go too far, but if I wanted to, I probably could have in ways my parents would not have been happy with. But I found an amazing girl. We have a beautiful house, a beautiful dog, and we hope to start a family. But advice like that, and I do ask a lot of my guests for parenting advice because I think that when it comes to do what you love, obviously you work for the Salvation Army. Your life has been made better because of the Salvation Army, but doing what you love, I mean, the number one job in anybody's life when they get there is being a parent. I don't care what anybody says. It's the number one gig.
And I think just being the authentic version of a parent, whatever that looks like for you, and mine is not pretty and polished, right? So I have 2 kids, and when they're fighting, my daughter Layla, who we call Hurricane, and my son, he's Anthony. My husband is Anthony. That's confusing. Don't do that. So my son, we just call him Little, which is funny because he's 6'3" and the biggest person in the house. I know we breed giants over here, but
wow.
So, they'll be fighting and Layla will say, Mommy, Anthony told me I'm a jerk. And I would say, okay, are you a jerk? And she'll say, no. I'm like, okay, then you go to Anthony and tell him, suck a turd. I'm not a jerk. You're not the boss of me. Because that's how I parent. That's just how we talk to each other. We tell each other, tell him suck a turd, because that's gross, but not too far, right? You're not saying bad words, right? But you're really making it clear, I'm not down with this. And that I think in a lot of ways, it's kind of my version of really intentionally building resilience in my children, because people are going to say mean things to you. Mm-hmm. So I want everyone's first thought to be, is that true of me? Am I stupid? Am I ugly? Am I whatever this meaning is trying to make me think I am? No, I'm not that. So who am I really? What defines me? What sets me apart? Who loves me? And I get to teach people how to treat me. And so if they're going to come at me sideways, they're going to get it. Not necessarily in a way that's going to get me arrested, but in a way that's going to teach them they don't get to treat me that way.
Well, Lisa, I think there's a sense of accountability, too, because I'm sure sometimes your daughter will come to you and said, he said I said something mean. Well, did you? Well, yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. I did say something mean. Okay. Is that who you are? No. And now that I think about it, I'm not really happy with what I said. Okay. Yeah, well, exactly. You came to that conclusion yourself, but I think it's so important for you to, let your kids come to that in their own time, as opposed to you saying, you're not a jerk. Yeah. You say, are you? Let them come to that realization themselves. I take parenting notes with every guest pretty much because I do interview a lot of parents. I had Jordan Davis. He's a country music artist. He's expecting his second baby here any day now. And by the time this releases, he could be a father of 2. But he gave great advice, which was his dad told him it's okay to have no clue what you're doing, but just know that you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think that matches so well. Lisa, I honestly, 30 minutes went by like that. I could talk to you for another 30. I want you to say hi to your amazing kids and your amazing husband. I've had so many great conversations with him as well. It was really a coin flip. I hope he wasn't sad that I picked you to be on the pod and not him.
He gets his own fun things to do. He can't have it all.
Well, Lisa, I seriously can't thank you enough for joining the podcast, and I really appreciate you taking some time for Do What You Love today. It really means a lot to me.
Thanks so much for having me. This was fun.